Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again, I'm your host, Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in theatrical and streaming horror movies. Each week, the Gruesome Magazine Grue-Crew will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. Tonight, we are reviewing MONOLITH. MONOLITH, yes. All right, let me introduce you to the crew. Starting off with Jeff Mohr. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
I am doing monolithic.
Monolithic.
What could I say?
Awesome.
I'm good. I'm good.
Doing well. Also joining us this week is Crystal Cleveland, the Living Dead Girl. How you doing?
I am doing great. It's great.
Yeah, great.
What?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think you're playing that part, Crystal.
I wish I was. When it comes to, I'm like, why didn't I think of something cool to say before we got on air? Because I was too busy. And then I get here and I'm like, it's so great. So good.
Oh, no. Also joining us this week is award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Mohr. How you doing?
I think the actress in the movie probably based her character on you. This lonely podcaster who's trying to work through what she's trying to say. Are you okay? Are you coughing up a monolith?
Ladies and gentlemen, check out Crystal at Gothic Cottage.
I'm like,
somebody gift that. Don't stop doing that, Crystal. You're just asking for somebody to.
It may not work. It may not work the way you wanted to.
Meme off of that.
Oh Lordy! All right, what we're going to do here, besides laugh, is going to review Monolith. We're going to start off giving you our first impressions. Those first impressions will be spoiler free, and then we'll dive into a discussion about the film. We'll get into spoilers if such spoilers can be found, and then we'll wrap things up with our score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. And of course, we hope you enjoy not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. If you do, please hit the like, subscribe, and share with a friend buttons. Each click will help us find more horror fans just like you. And as an added note, if you like older horror films, we also have Decades of Horror, which we have 3 of those. We have the classic era, which goes through the 60s. We have the 70s, and we also have the 80s. So check those out. It's on the very stream that you're looking at this if you're on YouTube. If not, search for Decades of Horror or look for links down below. All right, let's take a look at the card and get into things. A boink. All right, Monolith 2024 from WellGo USA Entertainment, available in theaters and on digital February 16th, 2024. The synopsis is: a headstrong journalist whose investigative podcast uncovers a strange artifact, an alien conspiracy, and the lies at the heart of her own story. Feels like there's more to that sentence to be had. All right, directed by Matt Vesely, written by Lucy Campbell. Why did I put? You don't pronounce the P in Campbell, do you? No, don't do that. All right, cast is Lily Sullivan. The voice talent is Ling, Cooper, Tang, Ansuya, Nathan, Erik, Thomson, Matt, Crook, Terence, Crawford, and Kate Box.
cool.
I probably got like a 75% on that. We'll go with it. But you know what I mean, right? You know what I mean about that sentence. That sentence feels like it doesn't really, it's not a complete. All right, let's move on. Let's find out what our first impressions of Monolith are. We're going to start off with Christopher G. Mohr. Christopher G. Mohr, what do you think?
It's an interesting film. I mean, it's very simplistic. It's I think I read online that, I don't know if this is the correct term, they call it a one-hander, where it's just one character throughout, at least mostly. I mean, you do get audio. I think there's maybe just one thing where you see like a birthday party video where you actually see
Elder people,
an actual character. But even the parents are almost like the parents in Peanuts. You don't see their faces. But yeah, it's an interesting type mystery that kind of unfolds as it goes along. At times I was all like, well, this feels like probably this might have worked better as a podcast than a movie, because it's a lot of talking, a lot of conversations. But it's shot well. It's got some really as much as it doesn't really take you to many locations, just visually, just the locations that you do sort of see visually or through the representation of someone telling a story, and then you see a visualization of that. It looks interesting, even though there's not really characters in those. It's just environments. So at times it almost feels there's almost feels like the sleep videos that pop up on my Apple TV when I'm not playing it, because it's just like, you're just moving through these environments and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't necessarily like the way the ending plays out. I got kind of mad at the main character, but I don't know. I think I also maybe I kind of expected there to be more to it, because there's this kind of buildup as to what is behind these. You kind of find this at the very beginning. What's these bricks that supposedly people are finding? But yeah, it's an interesting mystery type thing that has, it goes I guess slightly bonkers at the end, but not really. I think in my mind I just thought visually it was going to be much more than what it was. So just know going into it that it's more of the atmosphere of them talking about things, and even talking about like visual things, like almost like not creatures, but just creepy descriptions of stuff. So I think the main thing is there's not really anything other, maybe towards the end there's not really a lot there, that a lot of meat to it. It's more just describing the sandwich as opposed to there being meat in the sandwich. But it still kept my interest somewhat. But again, I wanted there to be more to it. I think Lily Sullivan does a really great job in it, in the character she plays. I'm a little bit biased because I loved her in Evil Dead Rise. So, and I met her partner in crime at Days of the Dead. But overall, I think it's an interesting film. But like I said, it almost feels like this probably would have worked better as like an audio story or something, because it's a lot of people just talking about stuff with sometimes a little bit of visuals to go along with that. But even that is just more just an artful representation of it, not really anything to you're kind of like, you see the slow camera and you kept expecting something to come out of corners of the room or whatever. There's nothing there, and you really don't have any kind of real thing that kind of happens until the very end. So yeah, I think I'm just as confused as the characters in the movie as to what exactly transpired and what I'm supposed to get from it. But I think it's shot well and acted well. It's just the representation of that cinematically was a little bit lacking for me.
All right, Crystal, you're up next. What was your first impression of Monolith?
Okay, so I have to say that it's shot in a really nice home. The location is very cool, and I do think the cinematography is great, and I think the acting is excellent. It's wonderful. I don't have a single problem with the acting. To say that this is a slow burn would be an understatement, but it doesn't really have a payoff either. Okay. So it's not really a slow burn, because I just think it kind of simmers the whole time. Even when we get to the end, it didn't hit me at all. It wasn't impactful. It didn't do much for me. I do think it's kind of fascinating and interesting how the whole story is it's really about, media and news and journalists. It's about the joke of journalism has become. That's what the whole movie is about. She's a podcaster, not a journalist. Just because you make a podcast does not mean you're a journalist, but everyone thinks that they are, which is an interesting take on this, and very, very, very true. I do have my degree in journalism, so I might be a little biased about this, but I think that's fascinating. I do enjoy the direction that they took there. And I see, that they were trying to get a message across. And I I firmly believe in the message. Like, she's already been shamed because she didn't do her research for a story and doesn't really know what the heck she's doing. She doesn't have any ethics. It's that part is fascinating, but it's just very, very boring. It's just not, it doesn't have enough to keep me riveted. And it does feel cold and dreary. And that's kind of cool. What's funny is when we first started watching the screeners, I immediately texted and I said, "Oh God, there's something wrong with my screener. It's just black." I said, "I tried different devices." No, it's actually just black in the beginning for a while. I was like, "Something's wrong with the screener. I'm only getting sound." No, that's the way it is. And it's not that long. It just threw me for a loop because I've had such issues with that. But from that point on, still, the people were interesting enough, I guess, and it is a character study and it is a take on this. It just didn't do much for me, though. I mean, I do appreciate that they got such a great actress, because if she wasn't good, this would have been horrible. Whew. She made it bearable for sure. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to people because I don't think a lot of people are going to really understand it or enjoy it. But I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And I thought some of the concepts were cool, but I thought it was overall kind of drab.
Kind of drab. Intriguing. All
Yeah.
right. Jeff Mohr, sir. What is your first impression of Monolith?
I found this to be a really interesting concept, but I think I'm kind of with everybody. I also thought Lily Sullivan did a really good job, considering she's the only person on screen the entire movie, I think, except for a couple of flashbacks with a little kid and the backs of adults, I think. But it does take too long to get where it's going. I was really interested until about halfway through, while you were finding things out and more people were showing up and stuff like that, and calling in, and our first podcast went live, and but then it just kind of goes. It didn't hold my interest, and the payoff wasn't there. You need something like that. If I'm going to hang with it that long, there needs to be a payoff, and they tried. But we still have, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, that's a harder one.
I mean, everybody thinks of Monolith like, there's a Monolith Monsters from the 50s, and there's 2001. And from that point on, so there is something similarly shaped, but trying to figure out exactly what's going on is a tough one, and you end up having to make a lot of guesses and assumptions, and there's no real spelling out of what's going on. Although I think there is something in there in terms of this character study, because like Crystal was saying, I at first felt kind of sympathetic for her. I did not have the immediate reaction that they were unethical and everything, that they had just got hung out in some way or another, but was trying to find their way back. But then later on, as time goes on, you learn more about her character, and that changes. So I should stop before I get spoilery here, but I found that kind of interesting, and the sort of the idea behind the inner discovery. But there's only one person there, so the discovery is her staring
at herself
through the windows or in the mirror for long periods of time,
and at herself.
Yep.
I seem to have a slightly better experience with this, but I still am in the same boat. I really was intrigued with her investigation into this, and the more it uncovered her either being incorporated into the conspiracy or being at the heart of it from the get-go and not knowing it. It's all a big mystery. And I like that. And I was really interested in it. And it starts, you know, as it starts approaching the third act, it starts really, you know, throwing in some heavier sci-fi aspects. Whether or not they actually happen, you know, this unreliable narrator thing is heavy on it. Which makes it really difficult when you only have one person and they're unreliable. It's like, then, you know, what are you doing? So there's nothing really to contradict or counterbalance or to either prove or disprove what she's experiencing. You know, if she's imagining anything, we have nothing to tell us that. If it's all really happening, we still don't have anything there once we have the conspiracy elements to know if that, you know, if that's true. So it starts to fall apart the closer it gets to its ending, and then the ending kind of thuds. And it left me thinking, and I think I shared this with you, Crystal. Like, I really don't know if I like this movie or not. As I'm, you know, I didn't mind watching it, but I don't know if I like it at the end. And I think I described it as it was an interesting journey, but not, you know, the journey. It was all about the journey, not necessarily the destination, because it didn't really do anything once it got to where it was going. But yeah, you guys are bringing up some stuff that, yeah, some of it, yeah, it is a little, yeah, it is a little slow, and it's not riveting. It's not riveting at all. But I found it interesting enough that I was watching it, you know, interested in what was going to happen and what she was going to discover, and you know, what is really happening. And I'm not really sure it delivered on all those things I was watching for. So I'm still torn. Even after I just said what I've said, I still don't know if I like the movie or not.
So I feel like this would be better as like a Black Mirror episode or something. You know, something more condensed with the better parts, you know, because I do feel like I get what they're going for here. You know, it's like a bad person, honestly, a lot of times doesn't see who they are until they see who they are, you know?
Which is interesting because a lot of the people she talks to are finding out the same thing.
Yeah. And she really does think she's a journalist. Like, that's so free. I love how there's.
Well, you can be a journalist and have a podcast.
You can be. Yeah. Sure. But she's not.
No.
Just letting you know. She's not. You take ethics courses in journalism, and she has no ethics. And then yet she paraded like, I would not want to twist your words. Literally, that is what you're doing every time. You are recording when you say you're not recording. She's just a bad person.
Cutting and rearranging.
She's editing stuff and to tell her story as opposed to it being a realistic portrayal of what they said. Yeah, I mean,
but are they trying to make a statement, or are they trying to color the character? That's, you know, is there? I
think they're making a statement. Do you know how many people do this right now?
Yeah.
Like, do you watch the media? There's so much
politics does it in general. Yeah.
Of course, they're absolutely making a statement, and I think the statement should be made because it is everywhere. There's very little ethics in journalism. The reason why I never actually stuck with my, you know, career was because of that. Because it was hard. Because it was hard to be ethical, and also, I mean, I always wanted to be an actor, and graphic design was more fun. There's a few other reasons, but ultimately, yeah, it's unfortunate. It's hard. It's hard to be ethical and be a journalist, you know. Well, and I'm too Dudley Do Right for that.
But I guess the most interesting aspect of it is you have this person who's supposedly this investigative journalist, and then they end up investigating their own life and the lies that have been part of their life.
Right.
So I think that's probably for me the most interesting thing, to where you almost have to, I don't know if it's the snake eating the tail type analogy, but it's one of those things to where like you spend on your life sort of spinning these things, spinning lies and stuff, and you realize you spend your own lies as to what happened in your own life, you know.
Exactly. She doesn't even realize she's lying anymore.
Yeah. So it is one of those things where it almost feels like it's, you know, like when people have visual representations of they're figuring out stuff, and it's sci-fi, but it's more of them just coming to the realization of who they are. That's why we're in Spoilerville, but that's why she sort of becomes face to face with herself.
Yep.
At the end, and so, I mean, in that's an interesting thing, but I'm not sure an hour and a half movie you need to tell that story.
Exactly.
No matter, like you said, a Black Mirror. I mean, it feels like it
Yeah.
probably could have been knocked down, because I think it only got, for me, it only got a little bit interesting once she received that box and all these things start to unravel. That's when it got a little bit more interesting, because I mean, literally the movie. Parts of the movie are you watching WAV files being created on literally you're staring at WAV files being created, and I don't know how many times she eats stuff out of bowls in the whole movie. There's like montages of her eating, smoking at her computer. I mean, it's really repetitive, and I think again it probably could have been whittled down like a 30 or 40 minute episode of some TV show as opposed to an hour and a half. I mean, but granted, you know, it's got a really great performance by, you know, the main actress, and even the audio things, because sometimes if you listen to conversations or stuff like that, sometimes that can be acted really badly, but it seemed very believable.
I agree.
So
I think all that was really nice. There's a lot of positives. There's a lot of positives to the film. It's well made, for sure. It just gets kind of boring, and I just was like, I don't know. I wish that it's an odd thing. It wasn't as the end. I kept expecting anything
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And then what happened?
Really have
I was
any,
like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
It didn't really have too much conflict going on, really. I mean, it kind of danced with it a little bit, but it didn't really get there. You know, you didn't get any highs and lows. It was pretty much steady incline slightly. So there wasn't any, you know, just didn't feel urgent, right? There wasn't any urgency to it. It was just kind of like plodding along. But even though the subject matter is interesting, what she was doing and uncovering a conspiracy, there wasn't enough oomph to it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even when we have a slight oomph with the creation of of herself, there's not even much to that.
And the box itself.
She's so competitive to people, but then she sees some doppelganger and she's like, she runs. It's like, why don't you just get something to beat the shit out of? I mean, I don't know if I would just stand there and run off. Like, I don't know. I got kind of mad at her. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it does have that one little found footage element too. When the one guy's gonna show her the brick on the phone, something happens. We don't really see what happens.
I still don't quite understand what the brick is supposed to represent. I got to be honest with you. I knew nothing about this film going in. And when they first started talking about this, I was like, brick? Is she saying brick? Is it a brick? Is that what we're talking about here? An actual brick? What the hell? I was like, this is dumb as hell.
And what do we see? What do we see? We see.
I thought it was that it was supposed to represent, and then this is pretty obvious, I guess. So there's probably deeper meaning, but the fact that she wasn't a very good person, the evil side of her that she kept covered up, dark and balled up, and maybe sometimes felt that hole in the pit of her stomach, you know. So then you pick this black thing up, and I'm stretching.
Well, they also have that one scene with the monolith in the sky.
Yeah.
Which really was
that about?
Weird.
Yeah. Which it's all implying alien, and you know, because they multiple times they come along and say it's, you know, otherworldly at the very least, right? But
yeah, but
they
I
don't
think
really come to that conclusion either.
I don't think there's any alien aspect of this, because and what's funny is when they talk about this disease, get it? The disease is passed through word of mouth, just like the journalism, just like the fake news, just like this. This is all about that. That's really all it's about.
Well, that reminded me slightly.
They threw in red herrings, and that's it.
It reminded me slightly of Pontypool in terms of that. You know, it was you caught it by hearing it.
Yeah, but then you have these segments where you hear the people telling the stories or whatever, and you have these slow push-ins with the cameras into these environments, and you're just sitting. I don't know about you guys. I was sitting here like something's gonna pop around the corner, something creepy is gonna be there. Because the one guy's talking about my brother. I saw my brother, standing there.
Face looked like wet bread, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, like he had a face like wet bread, which I think that was my new favorite piece of dialogue ever in the movie. Face like wet bread, because then you can just visualize. Oh God! So I wanted to see that wet bread head. And I didn't see anything. And then there's another one where like one was like, I thought I'm going to see the window. And all you see is blowing. I mean, it's environments. And I think for the most part, I wanted more. Show me something. Because you can, there's only so much you can say. This is a visual medium, and you can only keep us on a string for so long before we get kind of irritated and like, you're not showing us anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest weakness is like that. You know what this film felt like? It felt like I know it wasn't made during. It felt like a movie made during the pandemic. You know,
it did.
Where you don't have anything. Kind of like Lou Simon's movie with the car and stuff. It almost felt like you have one person in an environment. You don't really need any other actors in it. And that probably would have been an easy movie to make during the pandemic. But that's what it kind of felt like. But there just needed to be. I just wanted more to it. There's only so much you can make internal, but before you just you externalize anger at the screen.
It almost feels like a one-man play too. But
it feels like
obviously there's enough elements not to be. But yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give our score 1 to 5 and our favorite scene. That'll be interesting. Christopher, you're up first.
Yeah, there's so many scenes.
So many scenes.
I will give it. I'll give it a 3. I mean, it's
okay, good.
Yeah.
I think it's visually it's solid with the cinematography. It's got a great acting performance. I think the main thing it was lacking is the story and how everything played out. I'll probably steal this from everybody, but I think when she hears the sounds in the next room and she walks around that corner and sees what's happened to the monolith, I thought that was I wish there was more of that in the film, because that was that one creepy moment where you just hear sounds and you go find out what it is and you're like, oh my God, what is that? So I think that's probably the part that I wish there was more of in this film. That there's only one small moment.
One small moment for mankind. So what was your score and favorite scene for my?
I'm also going to give it a 3, and definitely my favorite scene was when she gets the box at the door.
Oh, at the door. Okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah, when she got her box, because obviously I thought it was going to be, the black
box.
Brick. We all thought it was going to be the black brick. And then it's not, and that was interesting. But I like the way she reacts to it as well. So, yeah, that was good. That was a good one.
I like that too. Jeff, what is your score and favorite scene?
I too give it a 3. It's like we're all in the same boat here at some point. I don't know if Doc's feeling the peer pressure or not, but anyway,
always.
I will. Wow, favorite scene. I think I'm going to say when she actually plays the video. Plays the video. I won't describe that further because I don't want to spoil that. But because where did that come from? Who, we're saying there's no aliens, but yet, if there are
there's aliens.
Maybe they're like, yeah. I'm not saying it's aliens, but anyway. That's it. That's all. Well, I like that movie because that's where it started to reveal some, like things that were gone from her memory, apparently, or surfaced.
Right. Yeah, and then we just get more and more after that, but the scratches on the furniture, which is still there because it all happened years ago. Yeah. So I'm going to give it 3 1/4.
Good.
Ooh, yeah, good for you.
Just to check. Christopher's shaking his head. Why are you doing that? My favorite scene. Can I just pick the monolith actually revealing itself?
Sure.
Because
I don't care. You can do whatever you want.
Sure.
Oh well, thank you.
This is your podcast. You own this.
It's
Yes.
This is your monolith.
Yes.
Well, we agree
So-
with whatever you decide.
So when
Your monolith moment.
I did. I mean, it is kind. I mean, I admit the way they shot it's kind of obviously hokey, but at the same time,
But it was
the
funny.
blood
I
and
enjoyed
flies,
it.
and then
Yeah.
it's sitting there with a little bit of blood around it on the floor. It's just like, God, that just looked so painful coming out. Because if it's not going to be that, it's going to be the found footage scene because you know it's me. But there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
That's-
and you
What-
can imagine how nobody else will tell her how they got their brick.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I know.
Well, you know, for me, what the scariest thing, I'm starting to realize I houses with lots of big windows are
Yeah.
scary to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can live in
you
a
feel
house.
exposed.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
think-
Right.
I think that was part of it though too, is that like you're exposed when you're in a home like that, which is kind of
Yeah, we have that in a lot
Everybody
of
could
these
see
movies.
her, but she
Yep.
couldn't
Because there's a movie Revenge. I think they had a big windows.
Oh, I love
and,
Revenge.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of these horror movies we see. I guess vacation houses and stuff. But I'm starting to realize I would hate to live out in the middle of nowhere with big,
No glass houses for you. Huh?
I don't like that.
All right. Well, there you go. That's our review of Monolith. Oh my gosh, heading your way February 16th, 2024. Let us know what you think of it in the comments down below. Oh my goodness. Jeff, Crystal, Christopher, thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having
You're
me.
welcome, and thank you.
All right, let's say good night.
Good night.
Good night.